All right, guys, it is time to close out the book here on the Access Blockbusters Pod for now on Agatha All Along. This is going to be a full spoiler discussion of episodes 8 and episode 9 of Agatha All Along, as well as some wrap-up thoughts here at the very end about how I felt about the series as a whole, and perhaps just some vague insights into how it would stack up with some other MCU shows in my opinion. Eventually, I'll be doing a more formalized ranking. Maybe even at the end of the year, I'll do just a yearly ranking of the MCU, re-ranking, blind ranking, something like that. But for now, this is what we got. We got Agatha All Along. So if you have not seen the last 2 episodes or the entire series of Agatha All Along, just make sure to save this segment for later and come back to it once you have seen those episodes. Let's dive in to Agatha All Along. So here's the gist on the series. I always like to give a little bit of context because there are always new viewers here. You can skip ahead if you've been watching the channel for some time, but there are always some new viewers here, and so I want to just give some context as to how I feel about previous episodes. I also want to preface this by saying, because a lot of people talk to me in the comments, which, by the way, love to hear your guys' thoughts. Make sure to keep commenting and keep the discussion going. It's the best part of this YouTube channel. But some people were commenting on the last episode where I said, Episode 7 was awesome. I loved Episode 7. But some other people were like, wait, I don't understand. How did you not like the previous episodes? This show has been so good. To which I say, that's awesome. I love that so many people are connecting with the show in such a way that it's really resonating with them. And I think that's awesome. Me personally, and you can go check out all the other spoiler discussions I've done for Agatha All Along, the show has not necessarily clicked for me. I don't think it is quote unquote bad or whatever that even means. I also did another video podcast about why I think, films and TV art is so personal and subjective. So even to call it bad it doesn't even make sense to me. But, it just wasn't clicking to me. And I understand it's not because it's cringy or whatever. It's more just because the vibe that they were going for, the more campy nature of some of the previous episodes and the trials and whatnot, it wasn't really clicking with me. And just to recap, I thought episodes 1 and 2 were pretty good, honestly. I thought episode 3 had some promise and it executed pretty well on this format. But I also said in that spoiler discussion that I knew if they kept going on with these trials that for me personally, it would get old pretty quickly. And it did. Episodes 4 and 5 were just not for me personally. Those were the trials with the Agatha trial and the Alice trial. Personally, just not for me. But then episode 6 comes along, and episode 6 is about Billy Maximoff. And that I thought was a pretty solid episode, just getting to explore the backstory. It was almost like episode 4 of WandaVision. For those of you who don't know, the showrunner of WandaVision is the showrunner of Agatha All Along. So a lot of parallels, a lot of similarities here. We see a lot of them actually, even in these final 2 episodes. And then episode 7 just turned it on. And episode 7 was like, oh, you thought episode 6 was pretty good. Episode 7 was probably one of the best episodes of Marvel television ever done. And so I came into this finale, I guess this 2-part finale, because it was episodes 8 and episode 9 at the end, released at the same time. And I said, okay, I'm on the fence. If episodes 8 and episode 9 suck, if they're like Secret Invasion finale, not good, I'm probably not going to like the show overall very much. But, there's the chance that these episodes could be pretty good, and then I end up liking the show. And I went into this pretty cautiously optimistic because, in my personal opinion, even though I like a lot of the MCU shows, to a certain extent, I don't think many of them have good finales. I would wager, the Hawkeye finale is fun, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier finale is pretty good for the show that it was. WandaVision finale was the weakest episode, probably, in the entire show, but it was still fine, it was still good. And I think the Loki Season 2 finale is probably up there. But the other finales, Loki Season 1, Moon Knight finale, not great. Miss Marvel finale, not great. Echo finale, don't even remember. The Kingpin dream sequence, whatever. So I went into this going, I just don't know what kind of finale this is going to be. Marvel hasn't really had a great track record with these finales. Let's see what you got. And I have to say, I commented about this on my community post the other day. But the finale, the last 2 episodes of Agatha All Along, did something that I, in my wildest dreams, could not have imagined these 2 episodes doing. These 2 episodes not only were good, I think they were really quality episodes, but what they did was they made the previous 7 episodes even better. And that's not easy to do when you're in the finale. It's like the last 30 minutes of a movie, for example. You're in the final stretch, right? It is not easy to do that. It takes a lot of concepts, and this is a spoiler discussion, so we're going to talk about, obviously, the Witch's Road and Billy manifesting it. But it took the last, 7 episodes of television, and it took a lot of the parts where I was like, this doesn't feel like it's connected to anything. I don't get what's going on here. Frankly, the entire time, I didn't get the Witch's Road. It seemed so manufactured and so out of place and so random. lo and behold, it is manufactured, it is random, it is personalized to Billy Maximoff. That's amazing. And so, yeah, we'll do, our usual play-by-play through the episode. I took notes, and we'll kind of walk through the episode and my thoughts on it. But just on a holistic level, before I dive in, these 2 episodes did what I don't think any other Marvel finale has done. Again, Loki Season 2 finale was really good, but it was just more of a culmination of what had come before it, and it was good, really good. This finale, these 2 episodes here, and they're not perfect, in my opinion. We'll talk about the imperfections. They're not perfect, but I think what they did that none of the other finales had been able to do is make the show better. Now, this is still not my favorite MCU show. It's probably not even in the top 3, but I think it is pretty comfortably up there in the good to great, tiers of these MCU shows. It's not in the mid, it's not in the bad. It's pretty comfortably in the good. And I'll stew on it. Maybe I have to rewatch the whole show now, because there's a lot of things we know now as an audience that we didn't know going into the show, right? Given the story. Maybe that makes it better. I don't know. Maybe it makes it worse, honestly. So I think eventually I'll do a rewatch of this show when I do a big Phase 5 rewatch at some point. But for now, this was a really good show. It was a good show. Maybe I shouldn't say really good for me personally. It was a good show. And so we'll talk about episodes 8 and 9 as we go along. Again, if you really love the show, amazing. I had, probably maybe a less enjoyable experience, but I still think it was a good show. And so we'll talk about it here. So episode 8 starts out here, and we start out with Alice, and she's awoken by Rio/Death. And so we, have gotten more of Rio as she was revealed to be Death. And Aubrey Plaza, was kind of inspired casting for Lady Death, honestly, because she is that dour kind of, dark character. She can play that really well. Obviously, I know her best as April Ludgate in Parks and Rec, but she has played other characters like in Legion, and she's been doing a lot of other things like White Lotus. So she can play a lot of really interesting characters, and she can be unhinged too. In this scene, though, with Alice, she's a little bit more muted, which I think is a good take here. It's almost like the inevitability of death. By the way, I thought we were going to get a Thanos reference. I didn't see one. I thought we were going to get an explicit Thanos reference like, hey, also this purple guy has been chasing me around. It wouldn't have fit in the story, but, I thought we would have gotten something to nod to the comic books, but, it is what it is. But anyways, yeah. So there is, there's Rio coming to take Alice. And the interesting thing that's revealed very early on in this episode is that one of the things that makes her unhappy when she's talking to Agatha is that there is a soul. I don't quite know what Billy Maximoff is. I'm just going to call him a soul, but a soul in a dead body. And that obviously would kind of make Death mad, right? That's not supposed to happen. And I think that is a really interesting take here. Also, I think the line that Jennifer Kale gives that, it tracks that Agatha's ex is Death. That makes sense. And yeah, that was funny because it does make sense. I mean, it's Agatha Harkness after all. And boy, does she kill a lot of people. I suppose maybe that's where the romance started. We didn't really get a lot of insight into that in episode 9, but we'll get there. So it is, it's much more interesting now because we have this different angle about why Death is particularly upset at Billy Maximoff, because he took over this guy's body. And then we, quote unquote, finish the Witch's Road before the final trial, at least. And it turns out it's just a circle. So there's your first clue that something weird is going on here. And then, Billy puts on his shoes. And at this point, I'm like, are you kidding? Like, the secret to the Witch's Road is putting on your shoes. That's silly. But then, it leads to the trial. And at that point, I'm just kind of like, if the whole point of the Witch's Road was getting back to the start, putting on your shoes, I'm going to be a little bit annoyed because that's silly. But turns out the show had more up its sleeve, and I kind of subverted all my expectations. So here we go. We get into this little, imprisonment room, the morgue, I guess. And I think here is where episode 8 honestly gets a little bit sidetracked because while I have not minded the other witches in the coven, and I think Lilia got her time to shine in episode 7, I haven't personally been too attached to these characters. When Alice died, I sad for, Alice, obviously, under the circumstances. Honestly, out of all the deaths in this series, I think, Mrs. Hart or Sharon Davis or whatever her name is, the whole joke about Agatha not knowing who she was still, carries through the final 2 episodes. But I think her death affected me the most, honestly. And she was only in the series for about an episode and a half. So it goes to show you, what the other witches kind of meant to me. And so when we get into this whole unbinding situation with Jen, I was like, okay, this is interesting. This is kind of interesting. Can we get back to the main story though? And I just think that, yeah, I'm glad that Jen's story got resolved, and the actress who's playing her, great performance. She breaks down into tears once she's unbound. But at that point I was like, can we can we maybe, move on to the rest of the story? But that's just me personally. If you were invested in the characters, that's awesome. So, Agatha, reveals that she was the one who bound her, and she kind of sucks. I think one of the things that these 2 final episodes provide for us is that Agatha is, the character we're following through this show, but she is not a good person. She really is not a good person. Kind of like the Penguin, but I think to a much lesser extent in this show. But, I think that is made very clear in these final 2 episodes. Agatha then, reveals that she thinks she can bring Tommy back. And that's interesting because it turns out later that the Witch's Road isn't really real. And so I'm wondering, I think it's pretty clear by the end of this episode that Tommy's soul is in somebody's body, which I'm sure will be picked up in the Vision show. I'm sure it will. But I think it's interesting that, even though Agatha knew that the Witch's Road was wrong, or not wrong, but fake the whole time, that she still thinks that she can bring Tommy back. And they kind of did bring Tommy back, I guess. And there was that question that Billy screams, asking, does somebody have to die? In order for this to happen? It was intense. That whole sequence where they were bringing Tommy back, I guess it was intense, And then Billy disappears and Agatha escapes the trial, and there's death, waiting for her in Westview. And the scene where, she cuts Agatha with all the glass shards, I found it a little bit uncomfortable. What's that thing? That thing where people have a problem, people get queasy when they see a bunch of little cuts or little holes, or there's some phobia. I don't have that, but I'm not going to lie that, I do get a little uncomfortable seeing all those cuts across her face. It was a little bit terrifying to me, honestly. So anyway, she's outside in the real Westview. These poor people, they allude to this in the episode, but these poor people are just like nonstop. I guess not nonstop. It's been 3 years since WandaVision, but still, this is the epicenter for just all these crazy magical things going on, and all the poor residents of Westview. But yeah, and Aubrey Plaza is sitting on top of the roof, and she is hamming it up, but honestly, it's good. I think that this kind of characterization for Death, it fits. And I think Aubrey Plaza was pretty inspired casting for the role here. Also kind of terrifying, honestly. And then probably the most random thing happens in this episode is that Billy just kind of floats down and he's Wiccan now. If somebody could explain this genuinely, I'm a little confused in the comments what happened between him leaving the trial and him coming back as fully powered Wiccan. I don't know. Where was this the whole time? Where was his costume? Honestly, I don't know. If somebody has an answer, though, I'd love to hear it in the comments down below. That I don't really get it, but you just kind of have to shrug it off because it's just, it's happening. Get on board, right? Also, the irony of a Maximoff giving his power to Agatha when, if you remember in the finale of WandaVision, that was the whole thing that Agatha wanted, was Wanda's power. And that makes so much more sense now, right? Because Agatha's whole thing is taking people's powers. And that's really interesting. So then we get a little bit of a witch battle here. And what I was thinking at this point, because I actually checked a couple times during this episode. I hovered my cursor over the episode so that the little playback thing could pop up and the title of the episode could come up, because I actually thought for a little bit that I had clicked on episode 9 instead of episode 8. But no, this was episode 8. And what was interesting to me is that this episode felt like a finale. And so as the episode was coming to a conclusion, I was like, no, this is sort of a traditional Marvel finale. What's going to happen here? And, Agatha, quote unquote, or I guess she does really betray Billy here at the end. She gives Billy up, which is really cold. But then Billy brings up Nicholas Scratch, and Agatha kind of all of a sudden does a 180, which I found a little bit quick. I'm not going to lie. I think it's understandable given episode 9, but it still felt in the scene, the execution of it, a little bit quick. But conceptually, I totally get what happened there. And then Agatha dies, right? And at that point, I'm like, so wait a second. What is going to happen in episode 9? Because they're even, framing the ending. By the way, more WandaVision parallels, Billy pulling up his hood and leaving while the residents of Westview watch him. Anyone else catch that? Very WandaVision parallel there. But, the music is slowing down. It's becoming more somber, and we're kind of focusing in on Billy's life after Westview. And it's like, what is going on? Is this the end? What is episode 9 going to be about here? And then we go back to Billy's room, right? And so, Death is gone because I guess Agatha is, she wanted Agatha or she wanted Billy. So she got Agatha. And we go back to Billy's room, and one by one, the pieces start falling into place, because then we start to see all these little things here, right? The Ballad of the Witch's Road, the leaves, right? The shoes, the Wicked Witch costume. It's all been there the whole time. it's not been Agatha all along. It's been Billy all along. And Billy manifested the Witch's Road. The whole show suddenly snaps into focus in a way that I just did not think was possible. It was so cool how that happened. And we cut to black not before Billy turns around and hears someone laughing, which I assumed was Agatha. Now, I was not counting on Ghost Agatha coming out in episode 9, as we'll talk about that. But still, I mean, it was a pretty safe assumption that Catherine Hahn was not just going to sit out the entirety of the finale of her own show, right? So I knew that she would come back in a certain form. I thought she was just alive somehow. And honestly, going into episode 9, what I was thinking was it was going to be Agatha somehow escaped Rio, and then Rio was going to come back and they're all going to fight again, which I was going to be like, well, that's more the generic Marvel finale that I know. But hey, went into episode 9 and was like, okay, I'm on board now. I need answers. And so let's see what's going on here. So we start at episode 9, and it starts out in the 1730s, and it becomes very clear that, Catherine Hahn, Agatha, is giving birth to Nicholas Scratch. And I did not have Agatha giving birth, Catherine Hahn having to give birth on screen. Obviously not in that graphic detail, but I did not have that on my bingo card. But there you go. We're going to get an origin story of Nicholas Scratch. And interestingly, there are still some questions that are not answered, because it makes it seem like, because Agatha is a ghost now and Billy is searching for Tommy, it makes it seem like these questions might be answered. It makes me almost wonder if Agatha and Billy will have a bigger role in the Vision series or whatever Young Avengers project is going on here. I would wager yes, right? It seems like it, because there are still questions that are unanswered. Like, for example, she names Nicholas Scratch because she says she made him from scratch. So is this kind of a, Anakin Skywalker style birth without a father kind of situation, or what's going on here, right? So we didn't really get much clarity. We honestly didn't get much clarity on Nicholas Scratch, period, other than just who he was as a child. The other thing we did not get clarity on was how Agatha Harkness came upon the Darkhold. And I think that is something that we will have to, I think those two questions are honestly what I would like to get resolved, other than the whole Tommy subplot, which honestly, I don't have a big attachment to Tommy as a character because he was just a kid in WandaVision. So whatever, they're going to find Tommy. But I think these are the questions that I have coming out of Agatha all along. So anyways, Agatha, she's walking around, and then she runs across this group of witches, and they invite her because they're very nice, and then she promptly kills them all. And it's just, again, showing that she's not a really good person at all. At this point, I was thinking to myself, it seems a little odd that they're devoting this much time to an extended flashback. And this is another thing where I go, these 2 episodes are really good. But in my eyes, personally, not perfect, because I think that we did need to see this flashback at a certain point. It felt like, though, it almost screeched the show's momentum to a halt. Now, eventually, it built back up a different kind of momentum, because I got invested again in this Nicholas Scratch, Agatha Harkness subplot, which I think was great. I was really impressed by the whole thing. But I think that in terms of the pacing of the show, it almost felt like this was meant to be, wait until next week to find out what happens to when Billy screams, and then, kind of watch the next episode. Watching them back to back, though, it kind of felt like, oh, where did my answers go? What happened here? But again, the content itself of the flashbacks really helped to make it feel more worth it, because the content, this is great. All this stuff is great. So, you start hearing them sing together, and you realize that the Ballad of the Witch's Road was invented by Nicholas and Agatha. And that all of a sudden got things, turning in my head, gears turning in my head, because I was like, wait, so I thought Billy, made the road. How did the ballad come from Agatha, right? So these are all questions that were going on. And then, what this flashback really served to do, that was so tragic, honestly, was it served to show how happy Agatha was in her own twisted way, because, again, she was killing a lot of people. But in her own twisted way, she was so happy with her son. And even though she did some evil, terrible things, the song they made together, it just showed the genuine side of her, I guess, the good side of her. And it was really sad. It was honestly really sad here. And eventually Nicholas Scratch, for reasons unknown, right? Other things that we have to resolve here. Aubrey Plaza is still death. Death is death. You can't kill death? ? So we'll see where she comes up again. But I think there's a lot unresolved here. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing, honestly. There are, like, the Loki season 1 finale, I was like, come on, guys. But, or even the Moon Knight season finale was like, Jake Lockley in the last 2 minutes, really? But this show, I think, resolved its story while leaving a lot of doors open. Do I wish... I don't here's what I'll say. I don't really like the idea that the last shot of the series is them walking out and being like, let's go find Tommy, because then it's like, stay tuned for the next show. But, for the most part, they really resolved everything they needed to while still layering in a lot of questions that I would like answers to. And I'm excited, intrigued to see where these characters come out next. And so, the Witch's Road is fake, right? And then we find out that the ballad is coming out here. And so we see Nicholas Scratch die, and then this witch comes and she's like, I've heard about this Witch's Road. And this is where it all clicks together again, right? Because Agatha uses the Ballad of the Witch's Road to get power from other witches, and she kills all these people. It makes the first 8 episodes better, and that's something that not a lot of shows can do. It's incredible, and you get to see moments from the first 8 episodes that are recontextualized now. Like when the Witch's Road opens, you see that Agatha Harkness is just as surprised as anybody else is, and it's really good. It's just so good how they were able to do that. And so now Agatha is a ghost. We're back in present day, and they have this conversation. Billy thinks that he killed all the witches on the Witch's Road, and Alice and Mrs. Hart and Lilia, but Agatha is kind of trying to comfort him. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's also interesting, I guess, to think about how much power this kid has, because even Wanda Maximoff had, she's being the Scarlet Witch, used an incredible amount of power to conjure the hex. And this was not even the hex. This was almost an entire dimension almost. And so I find it interesting, right? I find it interesting. I don't think it's necessarily a plot hole, but it's something I would like to see explored, of where this power came from, how much he was able to harness and understand how much he was able to use it. But anyways, there's that. And then, Billy tries to banish Agatha. I still maintain, I'm not a super big fan of reading out the Latin stuff. Like, if you're going to do magic, it's fine. Just do magic. You don't have to read Latin things and, spin in circles and stuff like that. I don't know. I found that part of the show not the best, honestly. Because honestly, Scarlet Witch, she's a witch, right? She's literally called the Scarlet Witch. And I know people in the comments have been like, but it's cosmic energy. But Agatha uses the same kind of cosmic energy as Scarlet Witch, and you never see Scarlet Witch saying Latin words and spinning in circles in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which would have been kind of ridiculous, honestly. So, I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe it's just me. But anyways, and then Agatha, she says she can't face Nicholas Scratch in the afterlife, which is interesting, not really explored. Also, the MCU has 17 different afterlives, so I don't even know what this is referring to. And she's a ghost. They go look for Tommy, and that's the end of the show. No post-credit scene here to speak of. Also, it does feel very much like Star Wars-y, although it feels Star Wars-y in the sense of there's a floating, transparent Force ghost kind of person hanging out with you, but also in a different way, where it's like, it's not like this is a benevolent spirit. It almost feels like Agatha is there to kind of just mess with I keep calling him Teen. Billy. And it's really interesting. So guys, that was Agatha all along. And just to give some final thoughts on the wrap up here. Look, there are episodes in this show. This was 9 episodes, which I appreciate. It wasn't 6 episodes, thank goodness. I hope most MCU shows from here on out are longer than 6 episodes, because my gosh, I know Ironheart is probably going to be 5 episodes or 6 episodes because it was made during the original Bob Chapek era. But, Agatha all along, Daredevil Born Again is going to be 9 episodes. I hope Wonder Man is longer. I think it is 9 or 10 episodes, which is good. I hope they keep doing that. I hope they keep doing that with Nova, with Vision. I think that'll be good. But, this is a show that I had very little expectations for. And for the most part, through the first half of the season, my expectations were met. It wasn't a high bar to clear. I was like, it's okay, right? On balance. And I think that there were episodes that I liked. I liked the first few episodes, and I did not connect with the middle section of the Witch's Road, right? And maybe that changes. Maybe that changes now that I know what's going on here. Maybe now I understand that this is all a manifestation of Billy's mind, that it makes a lot more sense here. But I also think that it's hard for me to say now holistically how I feel about the show, because the last 3 episodes changed my perception of the whole show altogether. And that in itself, by the way, even if I need to rewatch the show eventually to kind of figure out how I feel, that in itself is amazing that the show is able to do that. It shows that Jack Schaefer, Marvel should keep Jack Schaefer around. She knows how to write twists and turns, and she knows how to how to build characters and then lay groundwork for things, sometimes the payoff takes a little bit of time. I would say that having to get through episodes 4 and 5 while still thinking The Witch's Road is kind of ridiculous, right? And then having to wait until episodes 8 and 9 to figure out why, it was a long payoff. I'm somebody who was going to finish the show anyways because I wasn't hating the show. I was enjoying it somewhat. But maybe there were people who jumped off the bandwagon a little bit earlier and they didn't get the payoff because they would have had to wait until the finale to get the payoff. But nonetheless, Jack Schaefer is a gifted storyteller. And, to take a character that I thought Catherine Hahn was very charismatic in WandaVision, but I was not clamoring for a spin-off series at all. To take that kind of character and put her in a spot of running a show and having the show be probably in my top 5 MCU TV shows, I would say WandaVision is head and shoulders number 1 for me. This is not a formal ranking. I'll do more of a formal ranking probably towards the end of the year. But, WandaVision head and shoulders above everyone else. And then probably Loki season 2, probably Hawkeye, probably Miss Marvel, and then probably Agatha all along. These are all good shows to me. With, the bottom couple having some problems, I think. Having some things that I didn't like as much. But, I think that these are all good shows. And I'm really happy, honestly. I'm always happy to have things that I was just having low expectations for pull it off. I'm always really happy about that. And I can tell that a lot of people in the comments that have been commenting really like the show, and that's awesome. That's so awesome. I'm glad that Marvel is on somewhat of a winning streak. I mean, the winning streak is 2 for me, Deadpool and Wolverine and Agatha all along. And I didn't hate Echo, by the way. I just thought, it's fine. It's whatever. But I mean, on a streak of, these are 2 good projects. And so, Daredevil Born Again or Captain America Brave New World is next. Daredevil Born Again, followed by Thunderbolts, followed by Ironheart. Let's get on a roll here, right? Let's get on a roll and see what happens. So guys, that is it for Agatha all along. What did you think of the series? What did you think of the last 2 episodes? Let me know in the comments down below. What were your favorite episodes? Some of your favorite moments? I'd love to hear and continue the discussion in the comments down below.